Just a few days ago, we made a video on the upcoming Pixel 7a, and while we were working on that video, the full details and designs of the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro got leaked as well, 7 months before their actual release. So let's start with the flagship, the Pixel 8 Pro. The full renders based on the CAD models were posted by OnLeaks and SmartPre. And judging by OnLeaks' past accuracy, we can be fairly certain that this is exactly how the new Pixels would look like. And in terms of the 8 Pro, I've noticed 6 major changes. The most obvious change being that the camera modules are now part of the same cutout, rather than the periscope being separated from the main and the ultra-wide. And I do actually like this change. It makes the camera array look more uniform and also bigger, giving the impression of a larger and a more powerful camera. The second thing that I've noticed is just how big the camera lenses look. Not only that, but the camera array in general is noticeably bigger now. Take a look at how much closer it gets to the edges compared to the Pixel 7 Pro. And when I first saw that, I initially thought that my theory from the Pixel 7a video of Google now using a new main sensor for the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro was true. But after investigating this a bit more, it turns out that I might be wrong. That's because the lens in the middle, which is by far the biggest, and you would think that would be the main module, well, that's actually the ultra-wide. You see those two rings that it has? Well, the ultra-wide on the 7 Pro also had those two rings, and it was also in the middle and had a similar size to this one on the 8 Pro. So I'm very certain that this is just the ultra-wide module, while the smaller one on the left is the main, with the one on the right, of course, being the periscope, which is easily visible from some of the images. Which means that we might not get any major camera hardware upgrades this year, aside from maybe the third thing that I've noticed, which is this black dot over here. This could be a couple of things. It could be a laser used for autofocusing. Although the Pixel 7 Pro already has a laser for autofocusing, and it sits right in between the main and the ultra-wide modules. And we can kind of still see this on the Pixel 8 Pro renders, so yeah, unlikely that we would be getting a second laser. It could then be a 3x telephoto module, as it definitely seems to match the size of the 3x module that Samsung uses on the S23 Ultra. If this is the case, it would then mean that, just like with Samsung, Google would also bump the periscope module zoom to about 10x or so, from the current 5x, in which case a 3x module would definitely be needed. However, I don't believe this to be the case either, as we haven't had any leaks suggesting Google upgrading the periscope module, and from OnLeaks' render, this doesn't look like a lens at all. So the most likely option is that this is a LiDAR module instead. In fact, this is something that Max Weinbach mentioned back in 2022, that the reason why Google went with such a big camera bar was for future proofing, as having such a large area would allow them to add bigger and more advanced camera sensors in the future, including a LiDAR module, without the need to redesign the whole phone. As to what extra features LiDAR would be bringing, we'll have to wait and see. But likely this would be Google's attempt to push developers to make more AR apps for Android, which are pretty lacking at the moment, with Google even killing their own Measure app a few years ago. The fourth thing that I've noticed is how the display now seems to be entirely flat, just like it used to be on the regular Pixel 7. The 7 Pro, on the other hand, had a curved glass, which I do personally prefer over a flat panel, as it does look a bit more modern that way. However, the Pixel 7 Pro's implementation wasn't the best, as the screen never actually merged perfectly with the metal frame below it, and you could easily feel that transition, so yeah, it kind of felt cheap. Switching to a flat display would mean that Google would not have to worry about this issue anymore. Plus, a flat panel is always cheaper to manufacture than a curved one. I've also noticed that the bezels are noticeably thinner than on the Pixel 7 Pro, close to half as thin. Sadly, there is a chin, which does look quite thick in comparison, although if you look at both side by side, it does seem to be about the same thickness as on the Pixel 7 Pro. Now, if you take a look at the top bezel, you might notice that the earpiece, / the top speaker grill, is now longer and also taller, which means that we might see a pretty big improvement in terms of that top speaker quality, as the one on the Pixel 7 Pro was quite poor, often sounding mono and sounding like it wasn't even there and doing anything. All in all, some pretty nice upgrades for the Pixel 8 Pro. And of course that we should not forget about the under-the-hood changes, such as the Tensor G3 chip, which would likely once again introduce some exclusive software features to the Pixel 8 series. So what about the regular Pixel 8? Well, this has also been leaked by OnLeaks in collaboration with MySmartPrice this time, and although there aren't any major changes here, there are still 5 that I think are worth mentioning. The first one being its size, with the Pixel 8 now being quite a bit smaller than the 7 was. The display is shrinking from 6.3 inches to 6.2, while the body is now getting shorter by 5.1 millimeters. That's a substantial amount, then narrower by 2.4, and thicker by 0.2. I think that this is a good change, as it simply makes the regular 8 more usable in one hand and more suited for people who want a more portable phone that still has a lot of flagship features. Although the difference in size between the Pixel 8 and the upcoming 7a would be smaller now, at just 0.1 inches. OnLeaks initially reported that the Pixel 8 would have a 5.8-inch display, which I think that would have been a great approach for pushing more customers towards the 8 Pro for all the features and a large display. But unfortunately, OnLeaks has corrected that now and has updated that to 6.1 inches. Second, unlike the Pixel 7, which had a matte frame and a matte camera bar, the 8 now seems to feature polished metal instead. Personally, I did actually prefer the matte frame on the Pixel 7 more than the polished frame on the 7 Pro, so to me this would actually be a downgrade, but it could be that Google is simply trying to make the 8 look more premium and more in line with the 8 Pro. One more thing that I've noticed is that the camera array is now bigger. The main camera seems to be about the same size as on the Pixel 7, but the ultra-wide is now much bigger, matching the size of that of the Pixel 7 Pro and the 8 Pro. The Pixel 7 did actually have an inferior ultra-wide to the 7 Pro, one that lacked autofocus and hence that macro mode that a 7 Pro had, and also one that had a much narrower field of view, so it looks like Google might now be upgrading that 8's ultra-wide to the same one as on the Pixel 7 Pro and the 8 Pro, which is great. Again, likely trying to blur the line between the 8 and the 8 Pro even more. The fourth change that I've noticed would be the bezels, which, just like with the Pixel 8 Pro, are now about half the thickness. But I think the most interesting change would be the shape of the body itself. The Pixel 7 had this fairly squared off shape, whereas the 8 is now significantly more rounded. In fact, it now matches the shape of the Galaxy S23 line, only with ever so slightly thicker bezels and a thicker chin as well. And just like with the 8 Pro, the standard 8 would also likely be getting that Tensor G3 chip with all those exclusive software features, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Google gives it a 120Hz panel too, once again making it even closer to the Pixel 8 Pro and a bit more differentiated from the Pixel 7a, which is now rumored to come with a 90Hz display. The Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro are only set to come out in October, just like the previous flagship Pixels, but I wouldn't be surprised if Google teases them at I/O in May, like they did last year with the 7s. This could explain why they have leaked so early. Speaking of Google I/O, Roland from WinFuture tweeted that June is when the Pixel 7a, as well as that long-awaited Pixel Fold, would be released. So an I/O announcement in May for all of these phones is extremely likely. The Pixel Fold is definitely the one that I'm excited for the most, especially given its form factor that features a much wider and therefore much more usable cover screen as opposed to the one that Samsung has on their foldables, which is very long and very thin. But what do you guys think about all of these new Pixels? And like always, if you want to get a Pixel 7 right now or 7 Pro, there are some great deals for you if you tap on the YouTube shoppable cards down below. I'm Daniel, this has been Zen of Tech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zen of Tech, signing out. Cheers.